C'est l'histoire d'une société qui tombe et qui, au fur et à mesure de sa chute, se répète sans cesse pour se rassurer. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. L'important, c'est pas la chute. C'est l'atterrissage.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Film Bros Podcast. My name is Isaiah Lucas, and I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Abraham
and Nick.
How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Doing great, man.
I'm good.
Doing good as well. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
How was your guys' day today?
It was long. I worked, and it felt like it was dragging today. I don't know why, but I got yelled at by a couple customers, and it's not fun today.
No, not fun. It was just hot, dude. I was sweating pretty much the whole day. I'm dying, man. PG&E costs.
Yeah.
I stressed out so hard today because I got my projected bill.
Yeah.
And I saw how much it was, and I was like, "You're lying."
Don't run that AC, baby.
No, I seriously got home and I told Lisa, I was like, "Yo, I just want to disappear. I can't be comfortable in my own home.
I get it.
I'm just sweating."
Yeah.
And I gotta pay to live. I had a pretty much a breakdown, honestly, and I was like, "The system, man!" I kind of felt like I was in this movie that we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to decompress a little bit.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
How about you, man?
How's work?
It was good. You know, it's around the first of the month, so it's busy, which is nice. It's nice to have stuff to do. And I was hot today too, at my place of work, but I think it was just because of the way I was dressed. Because I was wearing
but you stay fitted.
You do stay.
But I was wearing
looking fresh.
I was wearing a thick shirt and pants and all that stuff, and so even just sitting down, I was like, dude, I can't sit with my back to the chair because I'm all sweaty.
It's gonna get stuck. It's gonna get stuck.
I'm sitting there
I feel
sitting
that.
up there doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, regardless of the days that we have, the bad days or the good, we get to come over here and talk about this movie. Or, just movies in general, which make us happy. So I'm glad that we are able to do so and enjoy each other's company while we do it.
Always.
So if you didn't already know, we are talking about the 1995 movie called La Haine. This is a French movie. It's also shot in black and white and is written and directed by Matthieu Kassovitz. And I believe this was his second movie, if I'm not mistaken. But I came across this movie from one of the film pages that I follow on Instagram. They had posted the scene when Vince is doing the "You talking to me?"
in the mirror.
Yeah, in the mirror.
Oh,
and I saw how they shot that, and I was like, "Yo, that was so sick! How they did that." And they kind of had a whole slideshow of all the cool shots that take place in La Haine, and I was like, dude, this movie is shot so cool. And I ended up looking it up and reading a synopsis kind of the movie without spoilers, and immediately would recognize that it wasn't streaming anywhere. And this was right around the time where I was like, okay, I want more Criterion Collection. And it was right around the time of the summer sale that they have where it's all 50% off. And I went to my local Barnes & Noble and was looking around in their section, and I saw that they had one copy, and I was like, I gotta get it. I gotta check it out, And so I ended up getting it for $20, and I think I watched it that night, and it blew me away.
Yeah.
I was floored. I think I was still living with my parents at the time. I got home, I think around 10 o'clock, and I stayed up until almost 11:30, and my TV was blaring, and I remember just sitting in my bed, just being like. just flabbergasted, mouth open the whole time. I was like, bro, this movie is insane. I loved every second of it. And I remember texting my wife, Alexa, after the movie had finished. I was like, yo, you gotta watch this movie. And I remember I came over and I showed it to her, and she wasn't a big fan of it the first time. And on the second time, I was like, dude, this is it's so good. Blah, blah, blah,
the first time didn't catch her?
Yeah, it didn't catch her at all.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't until we rewatched it.
Oh, I see.
So it was my third rewatch, her second rewatch, and she watched it again. She was like, I could see how it's really like a good movie. And like I think the first time I was just not wanting to like it, but since I'm able to like open myself up and kind of like put that past experience behind me, I really can see like how good of a movie this truly is. And it felt good because I was like, thank
Yeah,
you.
she
Like,
talked to me. I was on my lunch and she talked to me a little bit about it, or she was like, "How is it?" or "How'd you like it?" And I said, "I'm in the middle of it." I said, "I was mad. I woke up early this morning and I didn't want to stop it."
Yeah.
And she goes, "It's good, right?" I said, "It's so good." I was so upset. So then she was like, at first, she, like you said, she didn't like it. She goes, "I really didn't pay attention to it. I think she said she was on the bike or something."
Yeah.
And she goes, "But the second time," she goes, "Man, it's good." And I was like, I mean, on my first watch, I was like, I can't stop watching. So
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I had even been introduced to this was because of you, Isaiah.
Mm.
You showed me that YouTube clip of the vertigo effect that they do and how sick it was. And I was like, oh, dude, I got to watch it. You've been telling me how good it was. I woke up on a Saturday, turned it on, and absolutely loved it too. I was like,
Yeah.
I sat there and probably every 10 minutes I was like, yo, this movie's sick. Like, I was just sitting there going, oh, that's so sick. Like, oh, that's so cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually verbally was saying that because
Yeah.
just all the cool techniques they use.
Yeah, I really enjoy like basically everything about this movie. I love its style. I love its presentation, the cinematography used, the acting, writing, direction is flawless. Like there's just so much to really love and break down
For
with
sure.
this movie. I remember the first time watching it, just recognizing how much symbolism is packed into this hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, after watching it for the first time, just waking up that next morning, I made breakfast, and I like usually whenever I make breakfast on the weekends, I like put on a YouTube video and I eat breakfast. But that day, I straight up, I think I made oatmeal. I'm sitting there eating it, and I was just scrolling through like forums, like on like Reddit,
Oh,
like
yeah.
like people on Reddit being like, "What do you think this meant in Haine?" or "What do you think this meant?" or "What did you know, what's your interpretation of this scene?" And I just was so enthralled by everything. I think I even I had found a couple of people online who, you know, we're mutuals. We follow each other on social media, and he was telling me about his love for the movie and how it really inspires him in his filmmaking and photography that he does. And I immediately was like, dude, this movie was so sick. Like I just wanted to gush about it, and it was cool to like find somebody else who had seen it and to be able to kind of just, you know, pour out our love that we had for this movie together.
Sure.
It was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
But
all black and white.
yeah, and I think that's something that makes this movie so much more timeless.
It does.
Which we'll get into in a little bit later. But if you haven't seen this movie, it unfortunately is not streaming anywhere. You do have to rent it. I am lucky enough, I said, to own it
on
on
YouTube?
Criterion Collection. And we did find out, yeah, correct me if I am wrong, which I was. It is on YouTube, streaming for free.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has been uploaded by somebody. It's not like, you know, you can watch movies on YouTube with ads or like rent it from YouTube. If you search Haine,
It's the very first one, full English subtitles.
yep, and it will, you can watch the whole movie for free. I don't believe there's any like ad breaks.
I
or
didn't.
anything in-
So I watched it on YouTube because I watched it late. And there was no ads whatsoever. It's crystal clear. There's no jumps, skips, anything. There's even subtitles in it.
That's so cool.
It's
yeah,
it's perfect.
full
It's-
movie
Full movies on there.
uploaded for free.
Because when you texted that yesterday, I was like, "There's no way."
I know.
I was like, "There's no way," and I was like, "There has to be ads."
Yeah, or usually it's like sped up and upside
Yeah,
down and
yeah,
in
yeah.
or
reverse.
So
flipped
at
mirrored
yeah,
or
you're just
something.
like-
I would have rented it if I had to, or I would have borrowed Isaiah's copy or something. But when I clicked it, I was like, "Bro, this is the movie."
yeah,
And I found myself kind of doubting it at times because I was like, "Man, what if it just like skips over a part and I miss it?"
yeah,
Yeah.
So I was nervous.
yeah,
But then when I looked at the runtime on IMDb and then I
Mhm.
compared it to YouTube, it was the same exact
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
So I said, "Oh, this is perfect."
yeah,
So it's on YouTube. Watch it on YouTube.
yeah.
I'm so glad for that too because I feel like if renting is something that's like blocking you from watching this movie, I'm so glad that YouTube has it for free.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse, and I fully recommend you watch it because it's such a great film.
It's genuinely like just an amazing piece of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like and when I say cinema, I mean like everything that encapsulates that word. That's the filmmaking process, the writing, directing, acting, like everything that goes into making a movie. It's all there.
Yeah.
And I love every minute of it.
Yeah, and it's a different side of France than we're normally.
Yeah, than what is normally portrayed.
Exactly. It's always this romantic.
Mhm.
You know, you're walking and you get all the grapevines, and you know it's a little stereotypical here and there, but
Yeah.
it's majority like, oh, it's romantic. You're in Paris. You should enjoy it. Art, all that stuff.
Everything's beautiful here.
No, this is a completely like the complete tail end of that.
Yep.
It's violence. It's being in the slums. It's it's having to be oppressed pretty much.
Yeah.
And
Slums. That's a good way to.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good definition right there.
a big half of this movie is all shot in like the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That area of France or Paris, I believe, is actually where it is set, and it's like on the outskirts of like what is known as like the city, right? And our characters come from, I guess you could call it like the wrong side of the tracks, right? Like you're not if you don't want to be caught on that side, right? Like even the reporters that are in this movie don't even want to get out of the car
No, they're
to
saying,
talk to anybody, and they're like, "Hey, tell us something."
screaming
And
out
they're
the
like,
I hate
window.
they're like 30, 40 feet away.
I hate
They
them.
don't want to be there. It's
Yeah.
it's scary, But let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, this movie is, like we said, came out in 1995. It is about these three, I guess you could say like teenagers,
Mhm.
what they're
Yeah, they're
supposed to be
teenagers.
portraying. Three French teenagers who had come off of a night of rioting and all this stuff because one of their friends was attacked by a police officer and was, to their knowledge, almost killed, and he's currently fighting for his life in the hospital. And these three people partook in a ton of riots and stuff that happened to show their how do I say this? Their opposition to police brutality and to racism and all of that stuff. And the film picks up following them the day after the riot happens, and also what is going to happen once they find out the fate of their friend who is in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to leave it at that. Not going to say anything else because there are some massive spoilers in this movie. So do check it out if you haven't done so. If you don't care about spoilers, continue listening. But I'm stressing there is
YouTube's
some
got it.
Yeah, there's some big spoilers here. So go to YouTube if you don't want to pay for it. Check it out. It's an amazing watch. It's an hour and a half. It's not too long, and I can guarantee that you will be entranced the whole time. But yeah, with all that being said, I guess we can get right into the categories, right?
Favorite
Yeah.
scenes, yes sir.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start it off. My obvious first favorite scene is the intro
Yeah.
and
Oh,
the
how
opening
could you not
credits.
be?
This intro is so sick, dude.
Yeah, and I love that this movie starts out silent. Like I remember the first time putting this on, and usually, whenever you watch a movie, you get like a ton of like logos and titles and companies that produce the movie and all this stuff, and everybody wants to get their name out there and all that stuff. But with this movie, it's just straight up black screen, some text. It shows you the title of the movie, and then it hits you immediately with this like image of the Earth. That's like a photo that was taken from outer space, and you hear this person narrating over the photo, and they're essentially they're talking about this old wise tale where there is a person on a skyscraper, and he ends up falling off of the skyscraper, and as he falls, after he passes each floor, he keeps reassuring himself, so far so good, so far so good, and he's falling from a skyscraper, so he's eventually going to hit the pavement, and as he's saying so far so good, so far so good, the guy says it's not about how you fall, it's in the way you land. And as that's happening, you see this Molotov
Cocktail.
get thrown at this photo of the Earth, and it explodes, sets the world on fire, and this huge like rush of sound comes in, and then we get met with a ton of footage from actual riots that were happening in France at the time, because due to the inspiration of this actual film. And I think it's such an effective way of storytelling, because we get to see everything that happened the night of, and once those opening credits are finished, then we get to, get introduced into these characters' worlds and follow them a little bit and see exactly where their thoughts are at and how they process things and all that stuff. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a really effective use of storytelling by showing us all the background information that's happened and all the setup with the opening credits, going over all this stuff. And then it's also edited beautifully with the song Burning and Looting by Bob Marley and the Wailers. Mm-hmm. So there's this like reggae that's playing, and it's a song about police brutality and systematic oppression, and it's coupled with this riot footage and footage of like police brutality.
It's absolutely brutal, man.
Yeah, and it's a crazy watch. Like you see all these people like getting hit with nightclubs and getting rubber bullets shot at them and pepper sprayed, and people in riot gear like hitting everybody, and people spray painting "F the police" and like all this stuff. It's all crazy. Yeah, and it's really great. I loved it.
I laugh because there's a scene where all the rioters come up to a car and flip it.
Yeah,
and they make the car look like a toy or like it's made out of styrofoam. Yeah, and I laugh just because it looks like they're like so buff. Yeah, but it's like the collective strength together. But I do agree, it's so perfect at showing the political climate that we're entering into. I mean, we're in a universe, like we're joining into this universe where the police are the enemy, and it shows it perfectly. We get to see all of the riot that you were saying, but then it comes to our character. His name is Saeed, and it's him, and it pans up over him, and you just see this like. They look like a gang, honestly. Yeah. They don't look like they're there to serve and protect. They look like they're there to beat and corral. You know what I mean? And it was so effective because you're immediately like, okay, this is our main character, and this is what he's going through. This is what he's been through, and this is like what the whole film is going to be about. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to spray paint "F the police" on the actual police car. Yeah, it's perfect at showing that. They're willing to vandalize. He's part of the fight back.
Yeah, he's part of the rebellion or the retaliation.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I love it. I love too him opening the opening shot of him like closing his eyes. He's got his eyes closed and then opens them and sees all these policemen like in straight up like SWAT gear.
Yeah, right. They call it riot gear.
Yeah, like they look. Like they're about to, breach a home.
Seriously.
Like they're about to go on like a search and destroy mission or something, dude. Like they're, to the T, armored up, got guns and all this stuff. And Saeed goes over to one of their vans, like we said, and freaking tags F the police on it.
So funny.
Then goes and meets another character that we meet later on named Vince.
Vince, man. Vince is crazy. He's like if you would think about this as a spectrum of saying like, this is just kind of where we're at in our society, or it's like, no, we're going to fight back and we're going to kill people. Yeah. He's on this end. He's on like I'm going to fight back and I'm going to get guns and fight. You know what I mean? I love his introduction where, first off, this movie is wild. It's kind of chaotic and it kind of is formless a little bit in like, we don't really have like a guiding factor to it. No. It's kind of like we're just following these characters go on throughout this day.
Yeah, I've heard this film kind of characterized as almost plotless, right? Like when you think of the word plot, it's something that drives the story. What happens?
Yeah. We don't get the only thing that's driving the story is that right.
Exactly.
But we don't see that right.
I will argue. I think another thing that's driving the film is those time cards.
Yeah, is the passage of time.
Yeah.
First off, I think that's such a genius way to build tension. Yeah, because you see that and you're like, okay, what does this mean? What is this leading to? And you hear that, so you're immediately like, something's happening like at a certain time, and like what's happening? So it's immediately like, okay,
it's like a bomb's gonna go off.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that story?
Yeah.
From Alfred Hitchcock. Mm-hmm. It's immediately what it reminded me of, and I think it was so effective, dude.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I forget where I was gonna go with this thought. I completely lost it. So
but that leads into my favorite scene, which is actually the introduction to Vince, which is you talking to me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
And
cool.
yeah.
immediately, you get introduced to this guy, and he's like basically brushing up, getting ready for his day, from what we see, and he's just in the mirror, talking to himself
Yeah.
and saying, "You talking to me, you mother?" Like,
It seems
and
like an impossible shot.
Yeah.
seems
well,
impossible.
he's like, he's reciting the line from Taxi Driver.
yeah, and
Right.
that was a fact that I
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
Like he's doing the whole, you talking to me? You talking to me?
Yeah.
No, no, no. Yeah.
And but immediately I was like, bro, this guy is gonna be like this the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I caught onto it, and he grew to me a lot. I started to like him a lot just 'cause
Yeah.
the way he acted and the way he is, and just seeing the introduction to him
Mhm.
was like, bro, I'm ready. Like I'm ready
Yeah.
for something to happen already.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like his introduction a lot too, especially that shot where he has a ring with his name on it.
Yeah, and it goes.
And it goes, yeah, it zooms in, and it's like that Spike Lee cut. I know that's a technique that he uses a lot in his films, where it's like that sped up like shot, and it goes in on his ring and shows like, oh, this is his name. It's his name is Vince, and
Bro, that go hard. Imagine having a ring with your name on it.
yeah,
Sick.
Bro.
fire. But we get introduced, and he's obviously living in the projects, where Saeed, I believe, is living as well, and we get introduced to his sister and his grandma that he's currently living with, and we can just tell it's like a chaotic household. There's just all this stuff going on. Grandma's disapproving of Vince being in the riots, and he's like, "Oh, if you're gonna be in those riots, you won't even make temple," and
Yeah.
all this stuff, and he's just like, I don't want to hear it, blah, 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 and starts to get ready, and that's when we get to this scene that's just so fire. This shot, dude, I still get amazed by it, and
Yeah.
like the creativity
It is.
to like
yeah.
to really do that, because I remember watching this for the first time and being like, how did they? This came out in '95. How did they CG the camera out?
I was gonna say it
Like-
almost looks like it's impossible because it's fully in frame. You should have seen the camera
Yeah,
if the mirror was there,
yeah.
but it's not.
And that's when we come to find out it's a body double.
Yeah.
That's they're literally like mirroring each other. So they've like went through this whole thing where they have to like copy each other and mime each other and do all this stuff.
Imagine the practice. too.
And it was such a sick shot. It still is a sick shot.
yeah.
And I love this whole like, we're watching what we think is Vin's, from the camera back here, so it's the back of his head. But we see Vin's looking at himself in the mirror, and he keeps saying, "You talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
You talking to me?" Oh, he's hyping himself up, and then it eventually gets to where he's like acting like he's got a gun. He's all, boom, and cuts to white.
I
and has
love
that
that.
huge gunshot and
Yeah.
everything. It's super sick. I love it.
Yeah, the way that they do their transitions is so creative, and it's
Yeah.
consistent throughout the whole film. Starting with this scene where right when he shoots, it fades to black, and we get a different scene.
Yeah,
I love it. My next favorite scene is when he goes to that dude's house and he is trying to get his money. Saeed is going, forget the dude's name, just some random guy, I guess.
That's
the
That's
guy
Snoopy.
with all the Kenwood.
No, earlier than
With
that.
all the Kenwood boxes.
Yeah,
He's got,
and he's
like,
like,
oh
they
my
get there and
gosh.
they're smacking
yeah,
the
and
TV.
he's like, bro, they burned my car.
yeah.
Yeah.
oh, dude.
I love this scene because it's showing like the more gray aspect of the rioting and how it not only affects the police and their buildings, but it also affects the civilians
Yeah.
who weren't involved, who should be standing for the riots and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
And he goes and he's asking, he's like, "Hey man, where's my money? I need my money," all that stuff, and it's of course the chaos is going on. But he goes, "Dude, what are you talking about? Money? Go look at what they did to my car."
Yeah.
And it shows like two burned to a crisp cars, and he goes,
Yeah.
"Because of your riot, I'm out 50." They call them francs.
Yeah. 50,000 francs.
50,000 francs. Yeah, and you're like, and he goes, "It's all because of you guys. This is your riots are doing
Yeah.
this. Like, you're supposed to be for me, and you're doing all this."
Yeah.
So it was an interesting perspective on the riots.
I think what's funny too about that scene is like while he is expressing his discontentment with the situation and his he's rightfully upset,
Yeah.
right? He was like, man, that car was the only thing that I had, and now it's gone. It got burnt up.
And the
And
whole
the riots,
time,
the whole time they were like, oh, I think you could see me on TV. And the riots, like the whole time, and and they even keep trying to like brush it off, and they're like, hey, it's just a car, you'll get another one, and all this stuff.
Nah, dude.
And it's like,
they don't understand.
yeah, it's like that was my thing though. Like
That's my
he
car.
uses that money or uses that car to get money.
exactly.
So I wanted to bring that up just because First off, it was funny to see all that, but it brought a new perspective. It's not just solely black and white. They're right, they're wrong. There's a gray area there that I enjoyed.
I think that also ties in pretty nicely into one of my other favorite scenes, which is a little previous before then, where we get introduced to Hubert.
Oh yes,
And so
I love Hubert.
Yeah.
Dude, he's so cool.
So I love him too.
He's sick.
He's great in this movie. But so at this point, Vince and Saeed, they meet up, and they're gonna go meet up with their other buddy named Hubert. And they're walking to this area. It looks real desolate. And while they're walking there, Saeed is telling this bad joke about this nun or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. And he just keeps saying like, "Wasn't that a great line? Isn't that funny?"
Oh,
Isn't
it's
that the craziest
I'll
line?"
kill you for free.
Yeah, or
That's
something
what
like
he was
that.
saying.
He was like, "That's the craziest line I've ever heard. Isn't that funny? Don't you think that's so funny?" And like the whole time he's like, yeah, it's funny, man. Stop, dude. Like it just keeps repeating and repeating himself. But they're walking into this building, and they go into this like roll up door, and we come to find out that this was a gym at the time, and all we hear are just these like breathing and grunting, and it sounds like hits landing on something. And the camera slowly starts to pan over, and we see this man who we come to know as Hubert just going to town on this punching bag. And previous before it shows that, Saeed mentions to Vince like, "Oh man, they burned this place up. How'd they get this car in here?" And all this stuff. And
The door's not even big enough for it.
yeah, and we come to find out that this was Hubert's gym. He owned a gym in the town or in the city, and it ended up getting burned up in the riots.
Mm-hmm.
And they even mentioned like, "Oh man, he must be pissed. That's why he's hid in the bag. He never really practices around this time of the day, so he must be angry." And we get this sick pan and slow-mo shot of Hubert just going to town on this bag, and it looks so sick in black and white. Like I love the way that it's shown. And eventually it goes over to the two characters again, Vince and Saeed, and they're talking about Hubert and the gym and all this stuff. And then it reveals that Hubert is a boxer, and it shows like a previous poster with him on it. It shows his name, and they go up to talk to him. They're like, "Oh man, are you pissed like about your gym?" And I believe he says like it was gonna burn down someday. Like, and it is strikingly like mature and sees the loss of one of his things much differently than the other guy. And I think it's such a nice comparison, because Hubert I think understands like sometimes when riots do happen, not everything is lost, right? There's some good that can come out of things. And then there's other guys like the guy previously who is like, "No, dude, regardless of what you lost, like I lost something too, and I'm pissed about it. And like now I can't do stuff because my car is burned down." And I love that they decide to show those two interactions, because it shows us that there are people who believe one thing, and then there are people who believe another thing. And it, like you said, it's not all black and white. There is a lot of gray area, especially when it comes to the side of Paris that they're in. And like we said, it's not always that cut and dry. I really appreciate that the filmmaker takes time to dissect these things and show those to the audience, and then let them determine whether or not who they're going to identify with.
Yeah. I also like it too that our characters aren't really like the best characters either.
No.
Oh no.
They're cussing up a storm. Every time someone walks by them, they go, "Hey, F you, F you."
Yeah.
They seem like really opposed to pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And it's funny to root for guys like this, because they're not really the best kind of guys,
They're like
honestly.
Yeah.
They're not the typical person you root for.
Yeah, they definitely aren't. But I do love the introduction of Hubert and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My next favorite scene's a little bit in. It's when Saeed is getting a haircut.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Vince messes my boy up, bro.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you have anything before that. It just
I have the DJ scene. I think that might be a little
that
bit
might be a
before.
little bit. I think that's actually right before my scene.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
So go
because
ahead.
they start to go back to Vince's house.
Yes,
so he can cut
because
his
that's
hair.
when. Yeah,
when they see
because
the
he was like,
cow.
"I got the date."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. But there's a scene where the guys are out and they're wasting time, really. They're kind of just walking around, interacting with the people that are around their area, seeing what's going on. They find out that the person who is in the hospital, his name is Abdel. They found out his brother got a shotgun, and he's going to do something with it. We don't know exactly yet. And, you know, they end up walking around a little bit more. Hubert's looks like he's like doing deals with some people, he's getting money from certain things. And we really get a feel for the landscape of where they're at this time. And I think it's tied in beautifully with this scene because it really shows you like there's this unity almost in this area that they're in, and it comes with this DJ scene. And it comes in, these guys, you know, Saeed and Vince sit in this little circle or like square area between all these apartment buildings, and we cut around, there are kids playing and stuff like that, and there's just this mesh of all these people hanging out down here in this square. And we see this DJ, it cuts up to him, and he's like moving these speakers like towards the window, and we get this sick shot too of like the camera behind him, and he has this Cypress Hill t-shirt on, and he flips his hat backwards, and he starts kind of showing off on the turntables. He's like doing all this stuff and like moving the thing, like the knobs with his mouth and all this stuff, and he's just kind of showing off.
What's the song that he's playing is whoop whoop. Is that one, right?
Yeah, that's the sound of the police.
Yeah.
But it's a remix that he does. You know, he throws in a lot of sample work in there and is doing like a live set in front of everybody in the projects. And I think it really ties in the culture around the projects, right? Previous to that too, like when they're on the rooftop and we see all these people like on this rooftop, like grilling hot dogs, listening to rap music, talking about Lethal Weapon, and all this stuff. Like, you know, it's very 90s, and you know, you can tell that they're really into rap and just the hip hop community at the time, and you know, the styles and everything that were coming out of New York and all that stuff. It's leaking into where these guys live and how they dress, how they talk, what they do, and all this stuff. And the scene that I really, really like throughout this entire sequence is whenever the camera starts to float out of the DJ's apartment, and while it's going on, you hear this whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police, and this sick remix, and the camera starts to get this like overhead shot of everything that's happening, and we see kids playing down on the ground, there are people walking around, and it's like the camera's like dangling almost, and it's like floating around like this. And the camera starts to kind of like pan up a bit, and it just shows you just all of this landscape that we're in. It's just tons of these apartment buildings, tons of these projects that are, this is these three characters' lives and all these characters' lives. And it I don't know, I really liked how it felt like I felt this sense of unity in that scene, because everybody, that was normal to them, and it felt like everybody was just kind of like, man, this is just, like a Saturday afternoon. We're playing around on the jungle gym. This guy's doing a DJ set, and this is our life. And I really liked the way that it was done. Yeah. And I also had come to find out the way that this had gotten shot.
On a helicopter, right?
So it's an RC helicopter.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Bro, they were telling me this just an accident.
Yeah.
So, an RC helicopter?
Yeah, so I had come to find out that the director, Matthieu Kassovitz, had ended up, he wanted to get this shot specifically, so he tied the camera to an RC helicopter, and they had dangled the camera like from the RC helicopter and flew it like out until that, so they could get that shot.
I imagine, cinema cameras are like these, I wonder if it's one of those ones where
it was all shot on film.
It was like these big, massive, and they cost like $10,000-$15,000 just dangling on an RC helicopter.
Yeah.
I would pay to see that.
But that's why it has that dangling effect, because the RC helicopter can't
it's not going to stay stable.
There's no stabilization.
It's not stable. So it's literally going.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I just figured it was just a regular helicopter.
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing I really appreciate about this scene too, is just the creativity that comes about whenever you have an idea. And sometimes a lot of that creativity, or like, just improvising certain situations, like, with movies now, I don't think that a shot like that would happen in a million years.
No.
It would be some drone shot that is like insanely stabilized and like, you know, looks like it's like gliding across and all this stuff. And I love that the director decides to take a risk, especially like a monetary risk.
Yeah, I imagine
With,
he's like following below it, like about trying to catch it if it falls.
Yeah, seriously. And I love that risk pays off.
It
And
does.
It's something that I think whenever you watch this movie, you'll never forget that.
No, it gives it so much character.
Exactly.
Definitely does.
Exactly.
Before your next one, sorry, but I want to bring up one it's before yours. It's when he's showing off the gun that he found.
Oh, yeah.
I love this
Smith and
scene.
that scene where it rushes in and he's pointing the gun at the camera.
So, for context, we get on the news report, people are talking. During the riots, one of the police officers lost his weapon.
A 45.
A 45. No one knows where it is. He hasn't recovered it yet. It's out there in the wild. Whoever's got the weapon is going to be the hound dog of the neighborhood. And it's not in the gym, but it's in like a garage building or something.
Yeah.
Vince is like, hey, I got to show you guys something before we go and do all this stuff. And he goes and you get that shot, and we realize he's the one who found the gun.
Yep.
And he's kind of like the worst person to have the gun. 'Cause
Yeah, seriously.
we know.
He's the last person that should have a gun.
Yeah, we believe that he's probably going to use it at some point, right? And I love the way that we get to see that dichotomy between Hubert and Vince, because Vince is like, oh yeah, look, I got so much power now. And Hubert is like, dude, what the frick are you doing? Like, you don't, like, we don't need this. You're stupid. Like, get rid of this. I don't want to be anywhere near this. You know, we get to see that he's wanting better for his life. He's wanting to get out of the slums the right way, instead of the way of violence and the way of all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it too because there's a technique that they use where they leave because they're kind of pissed off at him. He goes and puts the gun away. He walks and he goes, and then he goes and grabs the gun and it puts the gun in his back.
Yeah, like
He conceals it in his back. Like on his,
in the back of the jeans.
In the back of the jeans.
His pants liner.
Yeah, and the technique that they use is they go to the hospital to try to see if they can see Abdel.
Yeah.
And the way that the camera it's framed around where the gun would be concealed.
Yeah, and it's following him in.
Yeah, and he was walking kind of like a hound dog. Like he's
like he's a big dog.
Yeah,
like he owns the place.
All of a sudden has this machismo
big
attitude.
shot.
Like,
Yeah.
he's like, don't even mess with me, bro. I got a piece now, you know.
Immediately I'm like, oh, dude, he's in a hospital. There's police there. Like, and then the police start hounding him.
Yeah.
And he's just going like, oh, well, you're not gonna let me see my friend. You're not gonna let me see my friend. You guys put him here.
Yeah. Like, they start getting heated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this guy's gonna do
He's gonna
something,
pull it.
dude. He's gonna pull this gun out, bro, and start capping people.
Yeah, so that establishing shot, and then the technique of following the camera in right where the gun is, it got me so tense.
Yeah.
And it was really effective.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to talk about.
No, you're good. That's a really good scene. But my scene is so Vince is giving Saeed a haircut, and I like this because you see both of their what would you call it? Gosh.
What do you mean? Like the way it's shot it's through the mirror?
No, you see both of their how they act. Their
Like personalities?
Their personalities finally showing more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Saeed's
I love his all. It's nothing, man.
dude. I was dying. So we get Saeed sitting down getting a haircut. He goes, "I want to look good. I got this date, whatever." And he jacks him up.
He does.
Yeah.
Vince
He's
jacks him up.
Lining him up and goes.
Like, and
You
Saeed
see
was
with
like,
the bead.
Saeed was like, "What the heck was that?" And he goes, "It's nothing. I promise. I'll fix it up. This and this and this." And Saeed is like, for me, he's like, in this, he's showing he just wants to look good.
Yeah.
Like that's all he cares about
He's
right
trying
now.
to pick up some chicks.
Yeah. And then Vince is just like, who cares? Like, it's hair. It's gonna go back. Whatever. Like, again, he's just like, he acts like a big dog. Like, who cares? Like,
Well,
nothing matters.
Yeah, and he's also refusing to admit that he did wrong.
Yeah. Which is part of the machismo
Yeah,
mentality,
Par for the
like you
course.
said.
Yeah.
Honest.
And the best part is when he goes, "All right, let me see it if you messed up," and literally pulls out like this mirror like you would at a barber shop,
Yeah.
and he goes,
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong.
He's like, oh, yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing. See, and he's all, stop moving it. Let me see. I love it. I love what he says too. He's like, it feels cold back there.
He's like, oh, didn't he think he was bleeding or something?
Yeah. He was like, what did you do? It feels cold back there.
Yeah.
And starts
And
touching
then
around.
literally the next scene, you see Saeed with a beanie on, and you immediately like, oh, he's embarrassed that he got his hair cut. But I like that scene because again, you see their personality shine even more.
Yeah.
And that's what I really liked because these are characters we're following, and we don't get to see too much about them, just what are they doing.
Yeah.
And this showed their personality a lot, and I liked it a lot because it showed their character.
Yeah. I also like too whenever it follows them out afterwards and he's wearing the beanie and he takes it off. He's like, how am I supposed to pick up chicks with this? And there's like a big bald spot right here. And Vince starts to kind of laugh and like chuckle a little bit. And he's like, oh, I gotta hit you. And he's like, hey, everybody in New York is wearing the hair like that right now. You don't even know. It's up and coming. It's cool.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't tell me that. Like puts his beanie back on. It's super funny. I love the interaction between them two.
Mm.
Yeah.
My next favorite scene after that one is the scene where I believe they all go to the city at this time and they're all in the bathroom.
This is the bathroom scene?
Yeah, and they meet.
Oh, mine's
this,
right after that.
they
This is
meet
my next one.
This random guy.
Random.
Absolutely. It pans down to a short
Yeah.
little dude.
So
Such a good crap.
yeah, nothing like a good crap. But the context between this, I believe at the time, is they find out that Vince brought the gun.
Mhm.
I
And
think.
He's wanting to kill
And
a cop.
and they're in the bathroom. They're talking about it, and Vince is talking all this crap about how he said like, if I find out that Abdel dies in the hospital, I'll ice a cop. Like I'll kill a cop. It
I'll
doesn't
ice
matter.
a pig.
Yeah, and he starts talking about how like he has this vendetta where if my buddy dies, then one of them has to die. And Hubert, being the voice of reason and being the rational mind in this group, is telling him like, that's not the way to go about this. Look, you kill one cop, guess how many there are after that? You're going to kill all of them?
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
You know?
Hubert is like, he's straight up saying not all cops are bad.
Yeah, and well, he's trying to get him to think rationally. He's
Yeah.
like, listen, like this cycle of violence is just going to continue if you keep with this mindset. And he said, didn't you stay in school long enough? If you did, you would know that hate breeds hate.
Yeah, that's literally one of my favorite quotes right there.
And the whole time Vince is not wanting to do it, and he's like, I don't understand how you're trying to defend these guys. Like, why should I even trust you or like try to even hang out with you if you're trying to defend these people? And I just love this, dichotomy that these two have and how they're not seeing eye to eye with one another. And Hubert being the person really trying to make a difference and trying to, change his life. I really appreciate where he's coming at it. And then I also like how Vince has this, this tough guy facade.
Mhm.
Like, I even love how they sort of introduce it in the "You're Talking to Me" scene, and
Mhm.
how like everybody I feel like has done that. You look in the mirror and you're like, what's up?
Well, I do that. I do that.
And you have
I
a
think
fake.
I do that probably like
What's
3 or
up?
4 times a
and
week.
you
I kid you.
and you have like a fake argument
Yeah.
with somebody, or you think of something that happened in the past and you're like, oh dude, if I'd reacted like this,
Yeah, we do that all the time. Literally.
it's human to think like that. And
Man, I think about it's on site, dude.
exactly. And so I love that they decide to show that side of Vince, because he has this, I'm a tough guy. I got to show up. I got to, I don't just talk the talk. I walk the walk and all this stuff. And he's further laying into that facade. And now it's even worse because he's got a gun.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
now he's got this like fake masculinity where, you feel a lot more powerful because you got a piece rather than somebody who might not,
Yeah.
And I love this whole, back and forth that they're having. And then all of a sudden this small man comes out and you hear the toilet flush.
He's wisdom.
And he straight up bursts out the door and he just says, nothing like a good crap. And, I love this shot behind him where it shows how small he is compared to all the other guys. And, as soon as he breaks out and says what he says, the guys are kind of like, what? Like, who is this guy? What is he saying? And this guy starts to talk about how, I once knew this guy named Grunwalski, and we were both in Siberia together. We got put in Siberian work camps. And the funny thing about Grunwalski is he was so shy to take poops like in front of everybody. And the thing that sucked about being on those Siberian work camps was whenever they would put you on the train to go to the camp and go back, they only stopped once to re-up on a lot of their like water intake or something like that. I forget exactly what it is, but they only stop one time, and they stop for like about like 5 or 10 minutes. And in that time, like you can't poop on the train. So if you want to go, you got to wait until they stop, and then you go do your business, and then you get back on. Well, Grunwalski, being so shy in front of everybody, never wanted to do it behind the cars like everybody else. So he would go somewhere else to try to do his business. And Grunwalski one day eventually went a little too far out into the bushes to do his business. And when he started to come back, the train was already taken off. And, you know, as he would sit there and run, he would run, and he would be holding his pants. And I'd reach my hand out to help Grunwalski, and he would reach his hand out, but his pants would fall. And then he'd have to stop and grab his pants and start running again and try to grab my hand, and it would keep happening. And he kind of stops the story there. And then Saeed gets interested and is like, well, then what happened? And then he says, Grunwalski froze to death. And then he says, au revoir.
He just
Goodbye.
leaves. He straight up just leaves.
Goodbye.
Literally, the commentary that all three of them had after was
They were
literally
like-
me
just-
was like,
they were like,
what was that for? What did he tell us it for?
why did he tell us that?
And
what does that
literally,
mean?
Like 5 more minutes after that scene, they're like, what was that for?
Yeah.
Like literally, it mind blew them. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it like me, I'd be like, all right, this has to mean something later on in the movie.
Yeah. And I
Not
love
only that.
Yeah, not only that, but you go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's signaling like because throughout this whole film we can see like okay this is a very like a French problem. You know they're going through the French riots and all that stuff. It's pretty far away from what we're dealing with here. But the story it kind of serves as a whole like this isn't just like one demographic of people. This is literally all of humanity, and it's supposed to serve as a symbol of kind of where Hubert and Vince falls on the spectrum of justice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because all they want is peace.
Exactly.
That's all they want, but the way that they get there.
So you can think of like Hubert as the guy lending his hand.
Yes.
And Vince being the guy that's like, no, I got to do it this way. And he eventually dies because of it.
Well, you said them both seem peace. For me, I think Hubert wants peace, but Vince wants justice.
Yeah.
That's what I
Well,
feel.
He wants peace by any means.
He wants peace through fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I like that. I like that
makes
more.
more sense.
Because that's why he's got that machismo because he
Yeah.
wants to fear people into like basically
Into
follow
leaving him alone.
Yeah, into
Yeah.
leaving him alone and having peace.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where he's if he just let go of his pants and not cared about his what you would think about his pride,
Yeah.
right? Is hiding his private parts and all
Mhm.
that, and just reached out, he wouldn't have died.
Exactly.
So it's what I really like that they kind of set the idea up and then answer it somewhat.
Yeah.
But-
I also like the parallel too of somebody try to lend a hand or somebody trying to help, like Hubert is really trying to help in the situation, but Vince is so caught up in his way of thinking. The same way with Grunwalski, right?
Mhm.
Like Grunwalski's like, no, I can't do this in front of anybody. I have to do this my way. I have to go over here, regardless if that's gonna, cause me trouble later.
Wow.
And he like refuses to change his ways, right? I mean, the guy even says like, I would give Grunwalski so much grief about it, about why he just doesn't do it, and he wouldn't do it. And like I think it's the same thing with Hubert being like, listen, like I'm trying to get in your head right here. What is the purpose of killing a pig if our friend does die? How many more of them are there?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we have to think about us now. And I think that parallels really nicely with this story about
Mhm.
Grunwalski and draws that parallel now knowing the ending of the film,
Mhm.
right? Like I think of Vince as that Grunwalski character and Hubert trying to help him and recognizing like, hey, listen, like maybe this isn't the way to think about things. Maybe try to change your mindset. And Vince is like, no. And eventually he ends up dying because of it.
Mhm. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear other people's perspectives too, because I was going through reading some reviews and all that stuff, and there was one that said that they thought that the guy trying to help Grunwalski was sort of part to blame in all of this because he was the one that was giving him grief for not like taking a poop next to everyone else,
Yeah.
being too shy and all that. So if he wasn't so grieving him about it, he wouldn't have had the idea to go and hide pretty much, because he felt ashamed because he was getting, picked on all the time. So I heard the perspective of seeing that the hand that's helping Grunwalski was a part to blame in his downfall.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I did think that was interesting that I wanted to bring up. And I don't know, I like it. And it's because it's like no side wins. Honestly,
Yeah.
in this story, no side wins, and like you just freeze to death.
Yeah.
And it almost feels cyclical. You know what I mean? I feel like there will always be a Grunwalski, and there will always be someone that's trying to hold a hand out to help.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how they set up this story, and then what we kind of see at the end, and how they leave it a little bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
I think they do it on purpose, and I think it's kind of like the beginning of the film, how it starts with the guy jumping off and hearing like so far so good until you hit, and to see that at the end,
Yeah.
it's like this overarching, like it's just happening. It's just a cycle.
It's a cycle.
And Hubert is trying to break the cycle pretty much.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is done beautifully as well is it takes that parallel that I'm talking about, like with the helping hand and all that stuff, and he's trying to help, but we even see in the end that that's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
And eventually everybody hits the pavement. And I think that it's a really, really beautiful kind of turn of the tale that they do, and like getting you to try to think about something, and you think, oh, maybe Hubert is going to be the hero, but even the hero dies, and we'll get into it a little bit later once we get through those favorite scenes, but yeah, that's my favorite scene right there.
My next favorite scene is literally right after that. So they're in inner city France.
Yeah.
They're not in the outskirts of France anymore, or the other side of the tracks, how you said it. And they're going to collect money from this character that Saeed knows, and his name is Snoopy.
Yeah, or Asterix,
Asterix.
depending on the version
where you watch it, yeah. And my favorite scene is when they're ringing their doorbell, because they don't know what's his real name. They don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
And Saeed goes, okay, let me click this one. And he goes, Snoopy!
Yeah.
And the guy goes, yeah, Tweety's here too, or something like that. And obviously, because Snoopy does not sound like a real name.
Yeah.
And essentially, they're just going through the line, and this lady comes in, and she's banging on the window, and she goes, hey, you think this world is yours? And this is what I thought was really cool, was he goes, I think it was Hubert said, the world is ours.
Yeah.
And then she goes, you're causing much ruckus, this, and that. And then finally, that's when Snoopy answers, and they're like, Snoopy! And he goes, what floor? Fifth floor. And I love it because...
This guy's weird.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Again, but you see a different side of Hubert here, and I was just like, huh. Like, to me, he's changing.
Yeah. He's sort of assimilating, right?
He's finally starting to get that machismo mentality like Vince's.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was a really big turning point for him.
Yeah.
And I really liked it, because you don't see that until like halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked it.
What I think triggers that too is being in Paris, right? It's being around all these snooty people who want nothing to do with the ghetto.
Yeah.
Right. Like I immediately think of the art show that they go to. Whenever maybe on the version that you watched, whenever they leave after they trash the place, the guy says like troubled youth.
Yeah, he says troubled youth.
So on the version that I watched, the guy says the malaise of the ghetto. And I don't know if you guys know what malaise means, but I went and searched up the definition of what malaise means. And the definition of malaise is a general feeling of discomfort, illness, or uneasiness whose exact cause is difficult to identify. And it just further drove home that point of like, these rich, elitist people who, live in the city of Paris, not on the outskirts or in the ghetto. They don't want to be identified with that stuff. And them having this like unease or unexplainable feeling around people who they deem ghetto or they deem, not of their status. And I think that it kind of flips for Hubert because he can see that. And he can see that
starting to realize
he can see that he gets treated differently by people who he is not normally around. But yeah, I love this scene too and him, them going into Snoopy's apartment, and
Snoopy's just
just
wild.
seeing this
Snoopy is wild.
Dude,
he's a character,
He
man.
reminds me of like a character from Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh,
honestly.
100%.
Yeah.
He's like, you want to do some coke?
You want a line of coke? Line of coke?
Come on, get a line. Come on. You
Yeah.
want one? And he's got like no clothing on.
Yeah, he's
like,
wearing like just like a towel.
yeah.
And he's
Straight up
got
a rope,
nunchucks.
busting out nunchucks.
nunchucks and they're
Dude, what
going-
is he doing?
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, super funny. And I just love the character that this guy is.
Yeah.
And seeing like at first what seems like this harmless interaction. Like you're watching this happen, and you see this apartment, and they're like, man, dude, this place is like a mansion. There's no way that this is an apartment. This is crazy.
Somebody lent it to me.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, my friend lent it to me, and I'm not giving it back. And, you see like I said, this harmless interaction. And you see how like kind of how strange this guy is, and he seems like off the wall, right? And what's insane is they start talking about doing drugs and stuff, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. And while they're talking about that, there's a piece on the table, and Vince sees that, and he's like, oh, whoa, this
eyes
is
it up.
yeah. He's like, well, this is crazy and stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, this is my piece and all this stuff. And then Vince is kind of like, oh, yeah, I got a piece too.
Well, cause Vince goes to grab it,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy was like, "Hey, no, don't touch it."
Yeah.
And I forget what he says, but then that's when Vince says, "Well, I got a piece too."
Yeah, and he's
he
like,
pulls it
he
out.
pulls it out, and the guy's like, oh, whoa, this is crazy. And they start looking at it and all this stuff, and he empties out some of the bullets, and he's like, oh, have you ever seen anything like this before? And he puts a bullet in,
One of my
and
bro
goes,
moments.
Oh,
And
that's a big
Russian
moment.
roulette.
oh, dude, the first time I watched this,
My heart
dropped. I was
Dude,
like, dude, I was like, he's gonna kill himself. Dude.
I was like, "What the heck
And
is
I
he
was-
doing?"
Yeah, and I was immediately like so stressed. I was like, dude, and everybody there is like, yeah. And they like
They're like,
get
you
all,
freaking stupid. What are you doing?
And he's like, oh, I missed. And I was like,
Yeah.
everyone's like, what are you doing?
And
Are
then
you
the
kidding
even
me?
bigger moment, he goes, "Well, let's up the stakes." Adds another one.
Yeah, and goes, does
Oh,
it
I missed again.
And I love Vince's reaction where he's like, like he's like getting so frustrated and so scared, and everybody is like, what the hell is gonna happen? Who is this guy?
Bro, Snoopy's wild.
Get your money and go. Like, we gotta get out of here. And I just love this whole interactions happening. It's so stressful, and then it gets even more stressful whenever Snoopy is like, all right, I did it. It's your turn. And Vince is like, I'm not doing it. Like,
I'm not
Saeed, like,
stupid.
I don't like this. Let's get out of here. Like, get your money and let's go. And he's like, no, I did it. Like, it's now it's your turn. And then he slaps him.
Oh yeah.
And he's like,
You don't
Oh,
touch me
dude.
like that.
yeah. And he's like, don't touch me like that. And he's like, no, come on, do it. And slaps him again. And we know previously, like, with a guy as hot-headed as Vince is, you're like,
Oh, something's
you're
gonna happen.
slapping the wrong guy,
Yeah.
dude. Like, something's gonna happen, bro. And he eventually gets his gun back, and he's, I think he does it again, and he's like, come on, like, quit being a wuss.
And they
all
start
this
pushing
stuff.
each other.
They start pushing and pushing, and then they eventually draw their guns
At each other.
on each other, and they're just pointing it at each other's faces. And Saeed's holding one back, Hubert's holding the other back, and they're just screaming, yelling at each other, all these obscenities. And the whole time I'm like, someone's gonna get
die.
shot, dude. Like, what the heck is gonna happen? And I'm just, gritting my teeth at what's gonna happen here. It's just an insane use of tension.
Yeah.
I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, me too. Mine are getting kind of pretty close to the end here.
My next one is when they're breaking into the car.
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
part of a
I-
bro moment for me.
Yeah.
It's
So
a big bro moment for me too.
yeah, that
I think I'm gonna save it for bro moment.
yeah, that's a bro moment for me as
Okay.
well.
My next favorite scene would have to be just when we get introduced to the skinheads.
Yeah, me too.
Man, it's
At the end, close to the end.
yeah. This is it
It's
leads
pretty much to
essentially the end.
Yeah, it
essentially
leads-
the end.
to the end. They're first off, they're on a hotel or on an apartment building at the very top. They're just hanging out, passing time. And Saeed sees guys down there, and he goes, "Hey, skinheads!" And he goes, "F Hitler" or something like that.
yeah.
And they start throwing bottles and stuff
Yeah.
at them from up there.
Absolutely random, but they, scenes go on, and they're walking down, and they run into the
To those
skinheads.
guys.
And he goes, "Hey, you're the one who said, you're the one who was talking
You're the one
crap
from
to
the
us.
roof."
Yeah, you're the one from the roof." And they start getting beat up, and then Vince comes and pulls out his gun,
Yeah.
and is like, "Oh yeah!" And they all back off, and they get one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they take him into the freaking alleyway into this backup area,
Yeah.
and they're like beating him up, beating the crap out of him, and he goes and pulls the weapon out, pulls the gun out, and he's
this part-
basically like,
Blew my mind because it's like, all right, let's see. You shoot him.
Yeah.
this is
Shoot
the
him.
reason why I love it.
Yeah.
And
He's
I'll let you
testing him.
finish.
Yep.
He knows that he's got the machismo, but he doesn't have the action to prove it.
He doesn't have the cojones.
He
I
doesn't.
was just about to say.
He knows that. I
Has
feel like
the machismo without the cojones.
yeah, he's like, dude, you're just a kid. I know you'd never pull the trigger. You're not strong enough. But he's goading him. He's saying like, come on, do it. He's a skinhead. The only good skinhead is a dead one. Like you have no other excuse not to. You're right here. You've got that power. And then all of a sudden it's really quiet, and he pulls it
Dude,
down.
you see
Yeah.
that? And you see, I hate saying skinhead. That as that
Well-
character for that character, like
Well,
without
that's-
saying.
That's what that's what they label him as too,
Yeah.
I think, in the script.
But just seeing him, he's just
No sympathy for those kind of guys.
No.
he's just
Yeah.
shaking.
Crying.
That probably looks weird on camera, but
He's like,
But yeah, one of the things I really love about this scene is Hubert like really like screaming at Vince. Like to the point where he's about to do it, like it looks like he's about to, and the tension's building, and he yells, "Shoot him!" And then he goes and drops it.
he goes and he
then-
like, doesn't he almost vomit?
almost
too?
vomit.
Yeah, he-
honestly, I would too though.
yeah, that's a scary feeling.
That's
man. It's a scary
having
feeling.
basically the life of someone on your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then taking it is terrifying.
Mhm.
Couldn't imagine it.
I
Yeah.
couldn't.
It completely breaks down the facade though, and it leads to where they kind of make amends a little bit, Hubert and
Yeah.
Vince, and Vince decides to give the gun up,
Yeah.
which I thought was a very nice character arc.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It felt
to
so
me that
rewarding.
to me it realized that he grew up.
Oh no, we
And
gotta talk about whenever we find out that Abdel dies,
Oh,
because even then we think that Vince is gonna do something crazy because he found out that he died.
Yeah, that's a little bit beforehand, right?
that's
No,
in the train
that's-
station, right?
That's after they mess with the skinhead.
Is it really?
Yeah, because that's like right when the ending happens. They find out and they go through all this stuff, and
It's right. They're in the train station just chilling
Oh.
because they say this there's this guy who's far left coming down the escalator. And
Yeah,
he goes,
and
but he's
they're
not.
like-
But he's not racist.
no, they said he's the most racist guy. Like he's
Most racist.
he's
My
the
bad.
guy that like only votes conservative, in France, and complains about all this stuff and everything, and he's the worst of them, and he's coming down the escalator, and that's when
That's when they
Saeed
do say,
when
yeah.
Saeed says racist.
Dude,
yeah.
and I just want to hit on it. Half of the things that Saeed says, and it's so like his emphasis, it's so funny
Yeah.
because his accent, one, and two is just like there's one he was telling a joke, and I can't. It's at the end. Never mind. But it's just his accent just makes it funny.
Yeah. But essentially we find out that Abdel, who is the friend that gets beaten by police, ends up dying from that situation. And we already know what Vin said he was going to do
Mhm.
if Abdel died. And so, they're sitting there, they get the news, and then we get another one of those jump cuts to the time. And we see that it's like 4:27 in the morning. And the ticking is just going off, and you immediately are like,
Oh, he's
what's
doing-
going to happen now?
Well, then
and it
you
cuts
s-
back, and Vince is gone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just Saeed and Hubert, and they both are like, Vince. They're looking around, and they come running out, and you just see this shot of Vince like staring at these two cops, and he looks like he's putting the gun up, like he's about to pull the trigger,
Mhm.
and we even see like the cop like go,
Get shot.
and like get
Fall through
blasted through the
glass,
glass
yeah.
and all this stuff. And then you see Hubert coming up behind him, and he smacks Vince on the back of the head. And then we eventually see that Vince was just holding up like finger guns to them.
It was in his imagination.
Yeah, it was him imagining the situation. And we find out like he didn't actually do it. The cops are fine, and they end up walking away. And that's where we get like one of my favorite lines where Vince is trying to justify it, and he's like,
I didn't do anything.
yeah, and he's like, I know who I am, and blah, 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 all this stuff and everything. And it's late at night, and somebody else was like, Vince says, like, I know who I am, and I know where I come from.
They go back where you come from.
Yeah, and he's like, go back where you come from and shut the hell up.
Yeah.
And the guy's immediately, he's like, why don't you go F your mom? And like, they start like having this whole debacle with one another. But then Vince kind of finds himself alone in this situation, and eventually runs and catches up with Hubert and Saeed, and that's when we get to the end.
That's when we get to skinheads, actually.
Is that?
Yeah, because remember, they're beating him up, and then
That's when he comes up.
that's when Vince pulls the gun on the skinhead.
That's why he's not there
Oh.
with them getting beat up.
Oh, that's it, huh? That
and
okay.
then after, so
Messed
then
up in my
we
head.
flipped it.
Okay.
So then after he's about to bomb, the skinhead runs away, and then that's when it gives him the gun.
Yeah.
I hate this scene. I honestly have it breaks my heart.
I was flabbergasted.
Dude,
Like
so
in
obvious-
shock.
Obviously, like you said, we see Vince give Hubert the gun, and Saeed and Vince are walking one direction, and Hubert is walking the other direction, and then all you see is Hubert's face and
the way they shoot.
Saeed
Yeah.
and Vince walking one direction. And
Yeah.
obviously, you can't see their face, but then you see a cop car roll up, or a regular car. It looks like a regular car, and then you see them put the light up, and it's a cop. And the part that I hate is one of the cops from the roof,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Oh, we remember you. Where are you going? We recognize you from the roof."
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, you're not so tough with your friends around." and blah,
Oh,
blah,
dude,
blah, all this
and
stuff.
it's the guy with the Notre Dame jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy with the Notre Dame jacket and the beanie.
Is the cop?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on
That-
the roof.
That
I
ends up-
I straight up thought it was just the skinhead gang.
No,
it was the
it's the
cop from the
cops.
roof. The guy when he pointed the gun.
Yeah, when they all went up there and said like, "You got to
Oh.
get down from here," and they said like, "Oh, what are you gonna do? Like,
What are
if
you gonna
don't
do
make
with your
that
Notre
guy?
Dame?
Yeah.
Ah.
He said, "What are you gonna do with
That
your
makes
Notre
it
Dame
worse.
jacket?" That's what I'm saying.
That makes
What?
it so much worse.
Yeah.
You didn't know?
I just thought it was a skinhead gang.
Cops. He even wears a band around his jacket that
It
says
says police.
Policia.
Oh man, I was just looking at the gun to get up against
Oh,
Vince's
bro,
head.
I can't believe.
No, it's the cops.
So then,
That's
Plainclothes policemen
yeah.
That's terrible.
So Hubert sees them now
getting harassed. By
getting
the cops.
harassed by the cops, and this is your pick, so I want you to finish this.
Yeah, like we said, Hubert sees them getting messed with, and they're getting harassed and pushed up against the vehicle and stuff and everything, and that one cop starts to try to,
Scare him.
scare Vince, and he has his gun up to his head, and he's like, "Oh, you're not so tough now, huh? Look how scared he is, everybody!" And he's all, "Ooh, ooh," and trying to like scare him, and Hubert's running from the back, and while he's trying to scare him, he's laughing, and he accidentally pulls the trigger.
I want you to know
And he shoots Vince in the head. And go ahead.
when I watched, cause you both texted last night, dude. The ending is wild,
Yeah.
and so I was like, okay, I thought Vince was gonna shoot someone. Was my thing, but when I saw this, I yelled, "Effing, effing S!" And I said, "No way!" Like it made me jump, and I said,
Yeah.
"What is happening?"
Yeah. I remember the first time watching this, and I think I literally like covered my mouth because I just couldn't believe it. I immediately was like, and was just so in shock. And as soon as it happens, you see the immediate like, what did I just do on
Yeah.
that guy's face?
Yeah.
And he backs up, and then he kind of looks at his partners, and everyone is kind of like, what did you just do? And then Hubert sees what happens. You see Vince like dead
Dude.
and he's bloody as hell. He's like laid out like this. And then Hubert looks at him and looks at the cop, and then he points the gun at the cop that just shot Vince, and then Vince, that cop points it back at Hubert, and they're just holding it, and it does this slow crawl into Saeed, who's on the other side of the car watching everything go down.
Honestly, that look that Saeed has is kind of frightening.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
got
he's
bug eyes. He's
he's
just like
literally like,
What do I do?
what the hell is going to happen? What
yeah.
do I do here? And while that's happening, we get this last quote that is said in the beginning of the movie, but it's changed a little bit. And it says like, it's about a society on the way down. And as it continues to fall, it keeps saying, so far, so good, so far, so good, so far, so good. And then it breaks in with, it's not about how you fall. And then that's when we see Saeed close his eyes, and everything goes black. You hear a gunshot, and everything's black, and then you hear, it's about how you land.
And then that's it.
And it's silence, credits, like the credits roll, song credits, I believe, are there, and then that's the end of the film.
yeah.
And, man, even talking about right now, I get goosebumps thinking about the ending, man, because I remember watching
What
that
do you think happens? Do you think the cop shoots him, or do you think?
I think they're both dead.
I think so.
I think they both die.
I think it.
I think Hubert
And
shoots him.
I think
Yeah,
the only reason that it makes sense for me for both of them to die is because that would allow the cycle to continue on both fronts, right? Like one of their own cops died. Now they're like, oh, we're gonna find the guy that did it, or oh, we're gonna treat these people harshly now, more harshly than we have than we've been doing before.
Yeah.
And then same thing, people who know Hubert and all he did for his community, they're gonna be like, oh man, it's war against the cops now because they killed my guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sucks because, Vince had this character arc, and then for it to be cut short right as he's building up the good,
I think that they did that so well to get you feel so bad for him.
Oh yeah,
they did. Yeah, and I don't know. The reason why I think it's Hubert who shoots instead of the cop is because like it would make sense with that cyclical nature of like, no matter how hard you try to get out of the system you're in,
you'll still have some roots in it.
Yeah, you'll still have some roots, and it's just like he gave up what he truly believed in that instance.
I get that. The reason why I think Hubert shoots him though is because I think he finally just was like, I saw this happen and I know what happened, and then he was in France and saw in inner France and saw how people treated him, and he was finally sick of it. And he was like, I'm not going to take this from anybody, and then he shoots him.
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Or maybe he realizes like, because
There's so many.
like to cause like a change, you need both respect and peace. And Vince is more like I'm gonna get respect.
Yeah.
And Hubert is more like the peace guy.
Yeah.
So it's more like you kind of have to have both to create change. And now that Vince is dead,
Yeah.
he's just like, okay, might as well just quote unquote freeze to death, right?
Yeah.
And take him out there,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I thought Hubert did it. But I like the idea that maybe they both
the cycle
shot each other.
continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Most definitely. But that is La Haine.
That's it, man.
Yeah, and it's a roller coaster of a movie, and I love it for everything it is.
Me too.
But yeah, if we have no more favorite scenes, let's get into some of the best quotes, which I think there are a good handful.
Sure.
Yeah, I only wrote down 2.
Okay, my first one is from the old man, and it's the first thing he says to them whenever he's in the bathroom, and he says, "Do you believe in God? That's the wrong question. Does God believe in us?" And he starts off with his whole tale about Grunowski.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Mine's a
like
dumb
that.
one, but it's when they're walking into a police station, and Saeed tells he's talking to the dog with the cop right there, saying, "Hey, Pooch, your master's an a-hole."
Oh, yeah.
It's so random. Like the dog is gonna care, and the cop is right there, and just straight up says, "Hey, Pooch, your master's an a-hole." It made me laugh.
Yeah. My next one is from Vince, and it's when they were in the bathroom scene, and he's kind of giving his side of it. He goes, "What I learned from from the environment I grew up in is if you turn your cheek, you're dead." And I don't know. It was a cool, just to get his thought process.
Yeah, most definitely. Next one I have here is from a lot of the billboards that we see around Paris. And it's funny that we only see those in the city where, in the city, all your dreams could come true. Everybody's going to tell you anything you want. And all these billboards say the world is yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that it's shown a lot because it's this, this pipe dream, right? It's this thing you get told in elementary school where you're like, you could do anything you believe in or anything that you dream and all this stuff. And it's kind of like
The world is yours.
when you get older, you recognize that's a load of crap. Like that it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they continue to show this, and then they even vandalize it and say that the world is ours. And I just love that whole that symbolism of why it's used and why our characters who grew up in the circumstances that they did continue to see that billboard.
Yeah.
I got one from Saeed when in the restroom, and it's before the old man comes out, and he's talking to Hubert actually, and he goes, "Wow, what a speech! Half Moses, half Mickey Mouse."
It's a good one too.
Yeah. I have one from both the cop and Hubert. one of the quote unquote good cops, the one that's trying to help them. He ends up getting Saeed out of jail and all that stuff. And there, as he's walking, he gives him a ride to their spot, and the whole time he goes, "What are you guys doing? We're literally here to protect and serve you. Those guys back at the hospital that you were harassing, those cops, they're just there to protect Abdel. Like we're just here to protect you guys." And then Hubert goes, "Well, who do we have to protect us from you?"
Yeah.
And immediately I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
shoot, dude."
That's a jab to
Yeah,
the stomach.
For sure.
because there's no one.
No.
They have to take it on themselves, which is
Exactly.
why the riots happen.
Exactly. That's it for best quotes.
That's it for me.
Me as well.
All right. Let's get into some bro moments then. I feel like there are quite a few here.
Yeah, I got a lot.
I'll start with my favorite. It's a very funny bro moment. They go on top of that building where all the people are making hot dogs, and Saeed steals the hot dog.
Yeah. And he's what does he say? He's like, let me buy it on credit.
Yeah,
or
let me
something.
buy it on credit. I was like, these guys are so poor. And the other guy's like, give me the hot dog. It's right there. And he goes, I didn't steal this. And he goes, it's right there.
Yeah. You saw eating it as
Yeah.
you saying it.
I was dying laughing.
Yeah.
I got one, and it's when they're at this playground right after that, and the news van shows up, and straight up says, "You look like rioters. Tell me
Yeah.
something about last night." Straight up labeling them.
Yeah.
They don't even know.
Yeah.
And just because they're in the projects or whatever,
Mhm.
I was like, bro, the news sucks.
Yeah. And it is even more of a sucky situation when they didn't even want to like try to get out and talk to them. They wanted to like hang out of the van and point the mic in their direction, and they're like 50 feet away.
Hoping they're trying to get something.
And then the whole time, the only thing that they end up catching is Vin's, acting out of anger. And of course, they're going to show that on the news and be like, "Oh man, these people are so angry. Look at them." It's
With no context.
it's not even in an effort to try to actually, be a good journalist and get the story. Yeah, super crazy. Another one of my bro moments that we haven't already talked about is when we find out that Abdel's brother pulls up with that shotgun.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's
Should've goes,
right after, we see this whole breakdancing montage, which is super sick.
Mhm.
And, some kid comes in and he's like, "Hey, there's some crap going down outside." And everyone, runs from the spot and they start running out. And, you hear people arguing, and there's people in this car and they're arguing, yelling at these cops. And you see this guy just go, boom, and like unloads 2 shots on this police car. And everyone is like, yo, like
And
yelling.
runs
And they
to-
run over there because the cops are now like, trying to tackle this guy. And they start hitting him, I believe,
Mhm.
and start beating him up. And there's just all this chaos going on. It's just insane.
Even riot police start to show up. And
Yeah, and then the people run from the cops.
dude,
Hubert punches a cop.
Mhm.
Like,
dude, this thing is wild.
yeah, it's insane. Vince points his gun at one of them.
Yeah, it's one of my bro moments.
Insane.
I have another one. It's early on, but it's when Vince shows that he has the gun, and he gives it to Hubert, and no trigger discipline, dude.
Yeah,
Straight up
straight up
pointing
is
at
all-
each other. He goes, and he has a finger on the trigger, bro.
The way that they handle that gun is crazy.
Yeah.
Like-
any moment that thing could go off.
Yeah.
They said, "It's loaded." And he's all, "Okay."
Let me
Curl my
It's-
finger around
yeah,
the thing
it's
real quick.
horrible.
Yeah.
My
Go ahead, Nick.
next one is when they try to break into that car. Dude, they break into the car
Just to leave it, dude.
just to leave it. No, they don't. No, they end up using it, don't they?
No, they break into
Oh,
it.
because
They
the
start
cops
it.
come.
They start it, and then that drunk guy is all, "I don't want to alarm you guys, but the cops are back there."
Yeah, the
And they're like, "Okay, on 3, we're all gonna run."
One,
What?
two,
Dude,
And
they
they
all
go, they're all falling out of the car.
dude, and the guy, that random guy, takes the
Helps
takes the
him
heat
out.
from him.
Yeah, he straight up gets in front of the kids. He's all woo, dancing and stuff.
I literally,
jumps on
I
the
put
car.
the rando basically saving them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he truly did. But I extend it to when Hubert and Saeed get caught,
Yeah,
and they get brought with the cops, and the cops are like freaking literally
torturing them.
torturing them.
That's way before though.
Yeah, that's when
Is it before?
Dude,
that's when
yeah,
they leave
that's far.
Snoopy's.
That's
And
when they leave
Snoopy's catch
Snoopy's
him up, and then Vince runs. He's
Says
like,
he
"Oh, I don't
doesn't-
know those guys. I don't know them."
and then runs.
Oh, they
and
leave.
leaves.
Oh, yeah.
And he like goes to the theater
Because
and he goes to those fights and all
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff.
But yeah, them getting tortured is crazy.
Yeah, I have that in a bro
And-
moment as well.
Makes me
I have
I
one
stop.
saying,
Yeah, it pisses me off too.
bro, there's an actual cow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. To go back a bit to that that torture scene, it's insane, man. It's unnerving. I remember the first time watching it, I was like, pissed because
Yeah.
just the total abuse of power. It's just sick.
Oh, 100%. And the cop is like, and then you could do whatever you want, and then you just act normal, just act like nothing's happening. Act cool. And I was like,
that was the thing that sickened me most was that they were trying to indoctrinate this new recruit.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a new guy straight up sitting here watching two people get choked out and tortured and just
dehumanized.
all this stuff.
essentially.
Yeah. They're being humiliated and like they're getting choked out. They're like hitting these pressure points and you can see like it really looks like they're being hurt.
Yeah.
Like there's a point too where like Saeed is getting choked out and he's like
Yeah.
coughing for air and gasping for air, and just the whole time you're just like, man, this is like hard to watch
Yeah.
almost. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, another one of mine as well is when Vin separates from them and he meets up with that guy at that fight that happens, the kickboxing, and they go to that club and the
dude.
guy won't let him in.
And he shoots.
So he freaking shoots him.
Yeah, dude.
It was
Oh
insane.
my gosh.
And I love that. I kind of love that scene as well because it shows the way that it's shot. It shows Vince's reaction as the guy goes up there and like puts the gun in the little people and shoots in there.
Yeah.
And then you see the guy fall out, and we see Vince like look scared. And
Yeah. It's
I love it's breaking down that facade of this tough guy attitude that he has, and whenever actual violence happens around him,
He's
he
like-
runs. He's like a little kid and doesn't know how to react to it.
yeah. It's weird because he's watching the guy that he's fronting to be, but when he's actually seeing action take place, he's like, "Yo, I can't be a part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't be what I'm fronting." You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. My last one that we haven't talked about, that we kind of did talk about, is Abdel dying.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it. It sucks to see that happen. And it was one of the things too where it's like, well, if he does die, then bad things will happen. Then
Mhm.
Vince will actually go and get revenge. And that's kind of, I mean, a little bit of what happens. But
Yeah. For sure. That's it for bro moments for me.
Yeah, that's it. We hit them all for me.
All right. That's it for the bro moments. Let's get into some facts then.
Yeah. So I'll hit you with the budget real quick. So obviously it's gonna be a little different. But to make this movie, it was 2.5 million pounds.
Okay.
And it doesn't really say much about how much it made over there, but gross for U.S. and Canada made 280,000, and gross worldwide only made $412,000.
All right. So
Essentially, it's a flop.
it's a bit of a flop, but it was very critically acclaimed.
Yes.
I know that this movie, I think it premiered at the Cannes Film
It
Festival.
premiered at the Cannes Festival, and I have a fact about that if you want me.
Yeah, go ahead.
It'll be my last fact actually. So real police were actually highly offended of how they portrayed their counterparts. So during the Cannes Film Festival, they were greeted, and when the actors arrived, they greeted them by turning their backs on them and protesting them, despite like just being a film.
Yeah.
But even despite that, they ended up getting a standing ovation from the crowd, and I believe it was about 7 minutes
Wow.
for the movie.
That's insane.
I'd be one of them. Just
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
So even though real cops were offended, they still got that standing ovation at a Cannes Festival, and I think that's one of the biggest things that can happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So
You got anything?
yeah. So the funny thing about this film is that the actors pretty much have the same names as who they play. So Saeed, his real actor name is Saeed. He has, I think, a different last name.
Yeah.
But one of the guy, Vince, his real name is Vincent Cassel.
Yeah.
And he, in the movie, he's supposed to be playing a teenager, but in reality, he's 28 years old.
and it
when
doesn't
the
look
movie
like
was
it.
in production.
Yeah.
He looks
19,
youngish.
Like 19.
Yeah, he
Very
looks
young.
youngish. He doesn't look, maybe not like teenage, maybe like 18, 19, early
I believe
20s.
like early 20s, yeah.
But yeah,
He doesn't look 28.
he doesn't look 28,
Not at all.
which was funny to read.
Yeah, for sure. So director and writer Matthieu Kassovitz, well, like I had said, was inspired by a true story that did happen, where one of his friends, a fellow kid from the projects, had died in police custody, and that's where he got the inspiration for this film. And it's also interesting to find out, too, that Matthieu Kassovitz makes an appearance in this film as well. He plays the
He does.
skinhead.
He does.
The one that they start killing?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the one that's about to die by Vince's hand is
That's
the
Matthew.
director and writer.
What?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, but cool.
Yeah. Another one here, which I was actually really interested by. The film was originally shot in color, but was then changed to black and white in post-production by Kassovitz himself. And
I wonder.
a color re-release was actually planned in case the original release failed at the box office, but was never released.
Mm.
Which I wonder how it would look in color.
I think
I wonder if it would lose its punch.
I
a
think
bit.
so.
I don't know. I have a quote here from Kassovitz with an interview with The Guardian explaining why it's in black and white. He goes to say, the black and white adds something to the architectural aspect of the film, which is set near Paris. It removes all romanticism of the City of Lights.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
I like that a lot.
When
I also think when it's in black and white, this was turning during the time when there was a lot of riots going on, and they were in black and white. So I think it's only fitting for the film to see it like that.
Mm.
No? Or is it just me?
No, I liked it. I love that it's really contrasty. It's
Yeah.
not like it doesn't mess around with a lot of the grays. It's like when you see there's a specific shot where I was like, I freaking love this, is when you see the character silhouettes and it's bright daytime, but the sky is literally washed out white.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like such a contrast. And
Yeah.
it's visually interesting, which I love.
Yeah, most
But
definitely.
I don't think I've seen a black and white film that I haven't liked yet.
Me either.
Especially all the films we've done for this podcast. I've loved them all.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 So I'm curious to see a film where I'm like, man, this would be great with color.
Yeah.
It's kind of reminding me that like it's not really that important. Color's not that important.
No.
You can do a lot without it,
Yeah.
which is
seriously.
super interesting.
Yeah.
I think when you edit this, you should just put it in black and white.
Put a black and white filter over it.
But we're just sitting here.
It won't hit the same. It won't hit the
No.
same. All right. Do we have any other facts?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, what didn't work for this movie?
I only wrote one thing down, and this is my fault, and I talked to Alexa about it a little bit, but there were some parts in the movie where I just was a little confused.
Okay.
But it
Mhm.
wasn't to the point where I got like bored or wanted to skip through it. I was just like, what is like, because I would focus on them speaking and their actions and then reading the subtitles. So there's just parts where I got confused. And it didn't it was just hard for me to understand.
Okay.
But that's the only thing that for me, that didn't work. Which is, there's some parts where there was a lot of it was kind of fast paced at that time. And I was just like, wait, what just happened? Or what's going to happen? So I found myself just like, shoot.
Okay.
Yeah, I put something similar, and it's a very small thing in my opinion, but it was like I wish there was just a little bit more establishing shots of like who characters were and what their plans kind of were.
Yeah.
A little bit more structure, a little bit,
Okay.
because I kind of felt like at some certain parts I felt like I was just being tugged along a little bit,
Mhm.
and I wanted a little bit more structure, or at least like establishing shots to show who we're talking to, what relation do they have to these characters, and how does it all mesh together
Mm.
a little bit. I was a little craving that a little bit.
Okay. All right. Is anything else for
No.
what didn't work?
No, that's all I
That's
have.
all I had.
I don't have anything.
You don't have
Yeah.
anything?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I respect it.
So, what did work then for this movie?
But instantly when I think of this movie, I think of the camera work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that as well.
That's-
This movie's gorgeous.
It's
Mhm.
just beautiful.
The cinematography, use of black and white film,
It's
It-
so weird to say it about a black and white films for me.
it makes it so timeless.
Mm-hmm.
And I one of the things that I think people just even continue to come back to this movie regardless of its subject matter is how it's shot.
Yeah.
And seeing the creativity used and seeing the way the camera angles and the way certain techniques are utilized and all this stuff, it makes people come back to it and like even study the film.
Yeah.
And be like, man, how did they do that? Or how could I perfect a shot like that?
Yeah.
Like anytime I see dolly zooms, now I'm
So
like,
cool.
I'm immediately like, oh, I love that technique so much. It reminds me of Haine. Or like, like mounted camera shots where, it's like the camera stabilized and you're just following this one thing. Like it's such cool camera work. It almost makes me feel like I'm watching like art.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's using the movie camera as, as a lens for art and to, not only make a piece of cinema that tells a story, but to make it look pretty and make it look beautiful.
Yeah. It shows the passion behind it. And the Vertigo scene, that was one of the times where when I saw the dude, I was literally like, ugh. Like I got a little uneasy just how distorted it looked. I felt like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like it really got me feeling like that certain kind of way.
Yeah.
But
one thing too, I wanted to ask you guys about that dolly zoom. When we watched that scene again, Alexa had brought it up and was like, "Why do you think that they decided to do that?" And I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, "Well, my first immediate thought was like to flex his chops,
Yeah.
to be like, oh, look at all the stuff I can do, and like make it tie in and make it look cohesive." But she kind of brought it up and thought about like that at that point they're in Paris, they're in the city, they're in a place where they feel like they don't belong. And she's kind of like, what if it is made to feel like, all this world that, it looks, so cool from the beginning and everything is in focus, but then it starts to get blurred as we get closer to the characters. And it kind of like shows this juxtaposition of like them feeling out of place or out of focus in such like a big town. And, they don't really know what to do because they're kind of disoriented by everything.
Yeah.
Oh, and the camera work is showing
Yeah,
that.
and the camera work is kind of paralleling that feeling.
Oh,
And I was like, that's kind of an interesting way to think about that,
Yeah.
I thought. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, I like that.
yeah. Another thing that I think really does work here is the direction and the writing.
Yeah.
The direction here is like on like master level.
Mhm.
Like it's almost perfect, I think. Like the director makes so many good choices and decides what he wants to show, and I cannot think of anything I would change like about this movie. I think that he had a very solid idea and he followed it through all the way and got the result that he wanted at the end of it as well. I think the same thing with the writing. I love Hubert as a character.
Mhm.
I love Saeed and how like lovable he is at sometimes, and then like how other times you're kind of like, man,
Bro,
like,
what are you doing?
yeah, like what are you doing, man? And then like Vin's being, just wanting more for him the whole time and wanting him to succeed. I think with how much symbolism is packed into this movie, I love that, we're able to sit here and break this down and talk about things and why certain shots are used, why things are talked about, why certain characters say certain things. It makes it so much more rewatchable, in my opinion. And I also love that this movie just leaves you with questions about society and how things work and why things happen the way that they do. And I also do appreciate that this film just manages to keep your attention the whole time.
Yeah. I was going to say I enjoyed the characters and how they kind of had that charisma with each other. And I like that they not only did they feel real, but they also kind of like transcended themselves as characters to embody larger societal roles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they did it so fluidly. It didn't seem like they were trying to jam these themes down our throat. You know what I mean? It just felt like they so seamlessly embodied these ideas and, portrayed them so well and contrasted each other so well.
Yeah, I
But-
agree.
And they still feel like real humans.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Which I thought was super interesting
Yeah.
because they weren't just characters standing in for the true themes of the film. It was like, no, they're people.
Yeah. And I think that's just a testament to the acting in this too.
Yeah.
Like Vincent Cassel, I think he kills it in this movie. Like he gives like a performance for the year.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome, his performance as well as Hubert. Like
Yeah.
I love everybody's performances in this movie.
One thing that I really did enjoy was the soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
There's just songs. There's songs that I know that I listen to regularly,
Mm.
and then I hear them on here. I'm like, like
You hear more bouts to
Zapp
the
and Roger
outs.
will always hit. Like that's part of my oldies playlist, and then you hear "Outstanding" in the background. Outstanding.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I loved it.
Yeah,
I
it's
loved it.
it's perfect. It encapsulates everything about, their culture at the time and
Yeah.
Yeah.
their love for, American music and rap and hip hop and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. It definitely does not age the film at all.
No.
For some reason, it still feels as timeless as ever.
Yeah. I think that that's another thing I've written down here. I think that this movie is unforgettable.
Yeah.
I
And
think it is.
it is timeless, and to me, I think is an infinitely rewatchable.
Mm.
I think that it's a little bit unfortunate as to why this movie is still very relevant today.
Yeah.
But I also think that that's what adds to its timelessness.
Yeah, because we know things.
Exactly. Well, and also like there are questions that get brought up in this movie that
Are still being brought up today.
Still being brought up today. They still have no answer.
Yep.
And I think that that's one of the things that adds to the timelessness of this movie. In regards to being unforgettable or infinitely rewatchable, this movie like sears into your brain once you've watched it, and there are things that you'll never forget after seeing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. One more thing too. I don't really talk about editing a lot in a movie, but I think the editing in this movie is so sick.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of the uses of sound and the uses of the ticking clock and just again the simplicity of like a black screen showing time and showing how that using that as showing the passage of time throughout the day. It's super simple, but it's so effective.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is I feel like the pacing was pretty perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It was perfect at keeping you engaged the entire time, keeping you interested in what these characters were doing and where the story was going to go.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. All right, who wins this movie?
I don't know the character name, but I put Saeed.
Okay,
That's his actual name.
that's yeah.
Well, I put him.
Saeed.
Okay,
I'm going to put Hubert.
yeah. It's a toss up.
I'm putting
It's a
Hubert.
toss up for all three, honestly.
It's a toss up for me between Vincent and Hubert.
I'm putting Hubert. Dude, he's so freaking cool.
Yeah, I really do like Hubert as a
I
character.
like him a lot, but I don't know. I just thought he just made me laugh, and I liked him a lot.
Okay. All right, what are some themes here?
Man, I put pretty much what the film says. Hate breeds hate.
Yep.
If you continue to fight hate with hate, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Good.
I put, this is going to sound cliche, the world is ours. Even though you were brought up in a bad area, that doesn't mean it has to define you.
Okay.
Do what you got to do.
Nice.
Hustle.
Nice. I'd kind of put something along the same lines of this movie kind of breaking down how you are essentially a product of your environment.
Yeah.
And, your experiences and your environment shape who you are and who you become as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also written down that quote at the end of the film where it says, "It's about a society on its way down. And as it falls, it keeps telling itself, so far, so good. So far, so good. So far, so so far, so good. It's not how you fall that matters. It's how you land."
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that quote because if we really break it down here, somebody that's falling and trying to reassure themselves that everything's going to be okay, eventually they're going to hit the ground.
Yeah.
And, at some point, everybody is going to meet that point. Everybody's going to hit the ground at one point, regardless if they think that they have everything together or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the questions that this movie asks in regards to like almost like fate or trying to ignore a problem by saying everything's okay when it's not.
Mm.
And I think this movie answers those questions rather adequately.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to say too, it's really interesting reading that quote now. It just kind of dawned on me. Like it almost feels like the director is telling me what the movie is about right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can look at this and people could ask you, what's Lehen about? And you could read in this quote, Lehen, it's about a society on its way down, and as it falls, it keeps saying, so far so good, so far so good. It's not how you fall that matters, it's how you land.
Mm-hmm.
And that could literally sum up the entire movie. So I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah. Agree, man.
All right. What are we rating this?
Who's going first?
It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Ooh,
I'm giving it a 10. It's a 10 for me.
Okay. I gave it a 9.
9.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I would rewatch it 100%. Not my favorite. But I
A
like it a
9
lot.
is so good though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
9's really good.
Yeah.
Like I said though, it's I don't know. It's my fault that I found something bad in the movie. It's
Mhm.
not the movie's fault. It was mine.
Mm.
So that's why I can't knock it for it.
Mm.
So I give it a 9. I think everybody should watch this movie.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 too.
Okay.
I think it's so great.
It's so good.
It's just such a good movie. Everybody needs to watch this.
For
A
sure.
9.
For sure. All right. Well, that's it for the episode, you guys. So if you did stick all the way to the end, we do appreciate it. We have been getting a lot of love on YouTube recently, so we do appreciate that. Continue to do so. Watch the videos, listen to the podcasts on your apps, whatever you listen to us, and continue to show us love, man. Rate and review the show on podcast apps. Like and subscribe. Turn on the bell notifications on YouTube. It really does help to let us know that you guys are liking what we're doing, and it also does let us know that. Excuse me. It also lets us know that you guys are, interacting with this stuff, and that again, like that you're liking what we're doing, and you can also tell us what you're not liking what we're doing if you feel so inclined to. We do appreciate constructive criticism and how we can always be better. So
yeah.
You could get in contact with us anyway, a number of ways actually. All the methods of contact that we do have are in every episode description. We have an Instagram, as our YouTube channel, and an email that you can send emails to. We do appreciate you guys doing so. But other than that, I think that's about it. I believe it is your pick next week, right?
Yes. So we're sticking in the French realm. This time we're going to add a whole ton of color.
All right.
We are going to be visiting the movie Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
I'm excited.
This movie got me to cry. It did.
I'm curious, man, because
I've never seen it.
Listen, I cry a lot in movies, and when I hear Nick said he cried in a movie, I'm immediately thinking, I'm a ball.
It's not.
That is true, because you don't hear Nick cry about it.
I don't know why this one got me. It's so much like, it's not like, oh my what, like, oh, you're not like, it's not some massive tragedy, but there's some things that are like, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and it like really like gets you heart wrenching just at the situation at hand. Man, it's such a good movie. It's on Hulu. I recommend watching it. I think it's an all women cast as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
I'll have to. Because in I have the Criterion Collection version, and in the booklet, the director made it a big deal to have this a very feminine movie, and I'm got to reread that, and I'll bring more information on the next episode.
Okay,
but it's on Hulu. It's insanely beautiful. It's one of those films where you're like on my deathbed, I want to visit this place before I die.
Okay,
because it's so beautiful, dude.
Okay,
so I'm ready to revisit this.
I'm excited to watch it for the first time. I remember seeing a trailer for it. I think when I went to go watch The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And I think when I went to go see The Lighthouse in theaters, I think I saw a trailer for this, and I was like, what is this going to be about? Like, there was just all this stuff going on, and I immediately was intrigued and was like, I want to check this out. So it's finally giving me the opportunity to do so. So
I know nothing of this film.
You about to find out.
Yeah.
Gotta find out next week.
For sure. All right. So if you have not checked out the movie, go do so. It is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. As always, this has been the Film Bros Podcast. Thank you guys, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.